If you're ever driving late at night and see a building with no lights, no sound, and no sign of life, but you still feel like something inside is watching you, turn around, because some places don't close, they wait. This story happened to me 3 years ago, and even now, when I close my eyes, I still smell disinfectant mixed with rot, still hear the slow beeping of machines that were unplugged decades ago, and still feel the weight of eyes staring from dark hospital rooms. Before I go any further, if you enjoy deep stubborn horror stories that stay with you long after the video ends, make sure to like and subscribe to Unblinking, because stories like this don't just entertain, they follow you. My name is Daniel. I'm not brave. I'm not a ghost hunter. I was just a freelance videographer looking for abandoned places to film. Old buildings fascinated me, especially places that once held life and hope. Hospitals were my favorite. Something about them felt heavy, like the walls absorbed pain. That night, I was following a tip about an abandoned hospital outside a small town in the Midwest. Locals called it Blackwood Memorial Hospital. It shut down suddenly in the early 90s, after a series of incidents no one liked to explain. The road leading to it was narrow and cracked, swallowed by trees on both sides. My GPS stopped working 5 minutes before I arrived. The silence felt unnatural, like the world had muted itself when the hospital finally appeared through the fog. My stomach tightened. The building was massive, gray, and broken. Several floors tall, windows shattered or boarded up. The red emergency sign above the entrance hanging sideways, flickering even though there was no power line connected. I sat in my car for a full minute, engine running, telling myself this was stupid. But curiosity won. I grabbed my camera, flashlight, and backpack, and stepped out. The air smelled wrong, not just old or dusty, but sour, like something had spoiled a long time ago and never stopped rotting. The front doors were already open. That should have been. Inside, the temperature dropped instantly. The hospital lobby was frozen in time. Wheelchairs lay tipped over. Reception desks were covered in dust. Papers scattered like someone had fled in a hurry. A flickering emergency light buzzed softly, casting long shadows that moved when I didn't. Every step echoed too loudly, as if the building was listening. I whispered to myself, without realizing it, just to break the silence. My voice sounded wrong in there, like it didn't belong. As I moved deeper, the smell grew stronger. Old medicine, mold, rust, and something metallic. Blood. Maybe. My flashlight beam slid across peeling walls and faded signs pointing to surgery. ICU and pediatrics. That word made my chest tighten. Pediatrics. I passed a row of patient rooms. Curtains hung half open. Beds still inside, sheets yellowed and stiff. Heart monitors sat beside them, screens dark. But I swear one of them beeped when I walked past. Just once. Slow. Deliberate. I stopped, held my breath nothing. I laughed nervously and kept moving, telling myself old buildings make noise. Pipes shift. Metal expands. But the deeper I went, the more I felt it. I wasn't alone. Near the nurse's station, I found a clipboard on the floor. Pages were stuck together, but I peeled one open. Patient names, dates, and besides several of them, written in shaky handwriting, where the wards do not move and still hear. I didn't understand what that meant, but my hands started shaking. That's when I heard footsteps above me. Slow, heavy, dragging. I turned off my flashlight without thinking and stood, still in complete darkness. The footsteps stopped too. Then something else happened, a soft sound, like someone breathing, right behind me. His spoon-hard on flashlight snapping back on, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. The hallway was empty, but the room at the end of the corridor, the one marked ICU, its door was slowly opening on its own, and inside, something was waiting. The ICU door creaked wider, slow and deliberate, like the hospital wanted me to notice. My flashlight beam shook as it spilled into the room. The air inside was colder than the hallway, unnaturally cold. and the smell hit me all at once. Disinfectant layered over decay. Like someone kept trying to clean something that refused to die. The beds were still lined up, monitors beside them, 4 stands rusted but upright, curtains hanging like torn skin. I took one step inside, then another, every instinct screaming to leave, but something stronger pulled me forward. Curiosity mixed with dread is a dangerous thing. Behind me, the ICU door slammed shut. I jumped so hard my flashlight nearly flew out of my hand. My heart was pounding, ears ringing, breaths shallow. I rushed back to the door and pulled. It didn't move. I pulled harder. Nothing. The handle felt ice cold, like it had been sitting in a freezer for years. I stepped back, trying to calm myself, telling myself it was just a jammed door, just an old building playing tricks. That's when the monitors turned on. One by one, screens flickered to life. Green lines crawling across black displays. The sound followed. Slow, rhythmic, beeping. Heart monitors. Machines that should have been dead for decades were now awake. And they weren't random. The beeps synced together, forming a steady pulse, like the room itself had a heartbeat. That's when I noticed the beds weren't empty anymore. They hadn't been a moment ago. I swear they hadn't. But now, shapes lay beneath the sheets. Human shapes. Still. Too still. The sheets rose slightly at the chest, as if something underneath was breathing, but I couldn't hear it. My flashlight trembled as I aimed it at the nearest bed. The sheet was pulled up to where a face should have been, but there was no face. Just darkness beneath the fabric, like the light refused to go there. A whisper brushed past my ear. Don't turn around. Spoon. Anyway, nothing stood behind me, but the room felt tighter, smaller, like the walls had shifted closer. The monitors beeped faster now. Panic crept up my spine. Primera ba, scared de why, bumping into another bed. The sheet rustled behind me, and I felt it then. Fingers, cold, thin, wrapping around my wrist. I screamed and yanked free, stumbling forward, nearly falling. The sheet on that bed slowly slid down on its own, revealing what lay beneath. A body. Pale, sunken, mouth stretched open, far wider than humanly possible. Eyes stitched shut with black thread. The chest rose once, then collapsed. The monitor flatlined with a long, piercing tone. Every other monitor followed. Silence crashed down like a weight. Then applause echoed through the ICU, slow, mocking, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I ran. I slammed my shoulder against the ICU door, again and again, until something gave. The door burst open and I spilled into the hallway, gasping, throat burning. The lights overhead flickered wildly now, bathing the corridor in strobe-like flashes. Each time the light cut out, I could see them standing closer. Figures, patients, nurses, doctors. Their forms incomplete, faces blurred, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. I sprinted down the hall, my footsteps swallowed by the building. The exit signs above me flickered but pointed in different directions, changing every time I passed beneath them. I turned a corner and nearly collided with a gurney rolling toward me on its own. A body lay strapped to it, thrashing violently, straps digging into gray flesh. As it passed, its head snapped sideways, eyes locking onto mine, mouth stretching into a grin full of broken teeth. "Stay," it whispered. I ran harder. I reached a stairwell and burst inside, taking the steps 2 at a time. The door slammed behind me again. Of course it did. My lungs burned as I climbed, expecting to reach the next floor, Tente next. But the stairs didn't end. I kept climbing, legs screaming, heart hammering, the same graffiti passing me again and again. Same rust stain, same cracked step. The stairwell looped endlessly, folding in on itself. That's when I realized something terrifying. The hospital wasn't abandoned. It was active. I collapsed against the wall, gasping, and slid down to sit on the cold floor. That's when I heard crying. Soft, childlike. Coming from below. Pediatrics. The word echoed in my head. Against every ounce of logic, I followed the sound downward. The stairwell finally opened into a brightly painted hallway. Cartoon animals peeled from the walls. Tiny shoes lay scattered across the floor. Small beds lined the rooms. The crying grew louder. I peeked into one room and froze. A little girl sat on the bed, feet dangling, hospital gown, stained dark. Her head was bowed, hair covering her face. My heart broke before fear returned. I stepped inside slowly, speaking without thinking, telling her it was okay, that I could help. Her head tilted up. Her eyes were missing. Just empty, black hollows that seemed impossibly deep. "They never let us sleep," she said softly. The lights went out. Hands grabbed me from every direction. Small, cold, too many. Children's voices filled the room, whispering, laughing, crying all at once. I screamed and tore free, bolting back into the hallway. The walls began to bleed. Dog streaks ran downward like tears. The floor tilted, sending me sliding into darkness. I don't remember hitting the ground. When I woke, I was lying on, and bright surgical lights hovered above me, blinding. Shadowy figures surrounded the table, masked faces leaning in, tools clinking softly. I tried to move. I couldn't. Straps held me down. Panic exploded in my chest. A figure leaned close, its face inches from mine. No eyes. Just smooth skin where they should have been. "You're staying," it said calmly. "The hospital needs you." Machines began to beep. That's when my phone vibrated in my pocket. That's when my phone vibrated in my pocket. The sound broke something. The lights flickered. The figures recoiled, hissing. I twisted violently, snapping one of the straps, then another. I rolled off the table and ran, the room collapsing behind me like a dying lung. I didn't stop running until I burst through a door and tumbled outside into cold night air. The hospital stood silent behind me. Dark. Empty. Dead. I didn't look back. I drove all night, but even now, years later, sometimes when it's quiet, I hear it. The beeping. The whispers. And I know Blackwood Memorial Hospital is still open. Still waiting. And if you think this story scared you, remember, some places don't need you to come back. They follow you. I wish I could say I left that night and never thought about the hospital again. I wish I could say the sounds stopped, that the dreams faded, that life went back to normal. But places like Blackwood Memorial don't just take people, they leave pieces behind. For weeks after that night, I slept with the lights on. Even then, I'd wake up drenched in sweat, convinced I could hear machines humming somewhere in my apartment, convinced the air smelled faintly of antiseptic and rust. Sometimes, just before sleep took me, I'd hear a calm voice in my head, low and patient, whispering, "You didn't check out." I stopped filming abandoned places, sold most of my gear, tried to move on, but the memories didn't stay memories. They bled into my waking life. Elevators made my chest tighten. Hospital commercials on TV made my stomach turn. And then the marks started appearing. Thin red lines on my arms, like surgical guidelines. Perfectly straight. I hadn't cut myself. They didn't hurt. They faded after a few hours, only to reappear somewhere else the next day. Chest, neck, wrist. Always neat. Always precise. Like someone was planning something. One night, around 2 a.m., my power went out. The apartment fell into silence so complete it rang in my ears. Then came the sound. A slow, familiar beep. Once every few seconds, I sat up in bed, heart racing, staring into the dark. The beep continued. Steady, patient. I reached for my phone to use the flashlight. The screen lit up, and for a split second, I wasn't in my bedroom anymore. I was back in the hospital. Not the ruined version I escaped from, but Blackwood as it once was. Clean floors, bright lights, nurses moving with purpose, patients wheeled past me. Everything alive, working, normal. Too normal. I stood in the middle of the hallway, unnoticed, watching as doctors spoke in hushed tones. A code blue was called overhead. They rushed past me into a room marked with my name. My name. I blinked, and I was back in my bed. Phone clutched in my hand. Tibipgone. I didn't sleep after that. The next day I did something I swore I never would. I went back to the town near Blackwood Memorial. I told myself I just wanted answers. Closure. But deep down, I knew the truth. The hospital wasn't finished with me, and until I understood why, it would never stop knocking. The town was smaller than I remembered. Quieter. People avoided my eyes when I asked about the hospital. One older man at a diner finally spoke. He leaned close, voice trembling, and told me Blackwood never shut down because of accidents or budget cuts. It shut down because patients stopped dying. They lingered. Doctors noticed it first. People declared dead would wake up hours later. Flatlined monitors would suddenly start again. Patients who should have passed on stayed trapped in failing bodies, screaming, begging. The hospital became obsessed with continuity, keeping people going, no matter the cost, and then the staff started disappearing. Some were found wandering hallways days later, confused, insisting they were late for shifts that ended years ago. Others were never found at all. The building learned, the man whispered. It learned how to keep things. That night, against every instinct, I parked outside Blackwood Memorial again. The building looked exactly as it had the night I escaped. But this time the front doors were closed. Lights glowed faintly inside. Asing primera, adenetisim biforhung crookedly. Above the entrance, emergency services available. My legs moved before my brain could stop them. Inside, the hospital welcomed me like an old patient. The air felt warmer, the halls cleaner, less decay. As I walked, the building shifted subtly, restoring itself. Walls smoothed, lights brightened, rooms filled. It was rebuilding around me. The monitors beeped softly now, not alarming, almost comforting. And the figures, they weren't hiding anymore. Doctors nodded as they passed me. Nurses smiled politely. Patients watched with hollow eyes. No one tried to stop me. They didn't need to. I reached the operating wing without resistance. A familiar voice echoed overhead, calm and professional. Patient has returned for evaluation. Hands guided me gently onto a gurney. I didn't fight. Part of me felt tired. So tired, the lights above blurred together as they rolled me down the hall. In the reflection of a glass panel, I saw myself. Pale eyes sunken, red lines marking my skin. I finally understood. The hospital didn't hunt randomly. It chose people who noticed it. People who paid attention. People who listened. The gurney stopped in the same operating room. The faceless doctor leaned over me again, tools gleaming. "You left without discharge," it said. "That causes instability." I tried to speak. My voice came out weak. "What do you want from me?" The thing paused. Then, almost gently, it replied, "Continuity." The straps tightened on their own. The lights dimmed. Machines beeped faster, and somewhere deep within the hospital, something massive exhaled. Satisfied, the straps tightened until I could barely breathe. The machines around me hummed louder, faster, like they were excited. The surgical lights above flickered, and for a moment I thought I saw faces inside them, pressed against the glass, watching. The faceless doctor raised a tool that looked old, outdated, stained by decades of use. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. Then something went wrong. One of the monitors screamed. Not a flat line, but a sharp, angry alarm. The lights burst, showering sparks. The hospital groaned, a deep sound that came from the walls themselves, like a wounded animal. The doctor froze. The nurses turned their heads at the same time, movements jerky and unnatural. "You are destabilizing," the voice said. "No longer calm." I realized then what the hospital hadn't planned for fear feeds Italiano, but resistance weakens it. I focused on one thought, one memory. Not the hospital, not the terror. I thought about the outside world. Sunlight, wind, noise, life that didn't echo. The machines around me stuttered. The straps loosened slightly. I screamed and twisted with everything I had left. One strap snapped, then another. The room shook violently. Tiles cracked, walls bled again, thick and dark. The figures screamed, a chorus of voices overlapping, patients and staff together, all begging me to stay. The hospital was panicking. I fell off the table and ran. This time, the halls didn't try to hide their true form. Doors melted into walls. Floors buckled like flesh. Rooms repeated and collapsed behind me. I passed people, frozen mid-motion, trapped in moments that would never end. A nurse reaching for a patient. A child crying, a doctor shouting orders that no one heard. "Don't leave," they whispered. I burst through the stairwell and sprinted downward. The steps dissolved behind me as I ran. I didn't count floors. I didn't think. I just moved. My lungs burned, vision blurring, heart screaming for rest. At the bottom, I slammed into the exit doors and shoved with everything I had left. They opened. Cold night air hit me like freedom. I collapsed outside, gasping, choking, laughing and crying at the same time. Behind me, Blackwood Memorial Hospital stood dark and silent again. No lights, no sound, just an abandoned building. I stayed there until sunrise. Nothing happened. No whispers. No beeping. I left town and never went back. Years have passed since that night. I live far away now. I don't film abandoned places. I don't even like driving near hospitals. Most days, I almost believe it's over. Almost. But sometimes, when it's quiet, when the world slows down, I feel it. A pressure in my chest, a phantom tightness around my wrists. And once in a while, late at night, my phone lights up on its own with a notification that I sent there when I unlock it. Discharge pending. I don't know if Blackwood Memorial is gone. I don't know if places like that can ever truly close. But I know one thing. If you hear machines where there shouldn't be any, if you smell disinfectant in an empty room, if you feel watched in places meant to heal, don't go back. Because some hospitals don't save lives. They keep them. If this story kept you listening until the end, comment what moment disturbed you the most, and share this video with someone who thinks abandoned buildings are harmless. And if you want more slow burn horror stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark, make sure you resubscribe to Unblinking. Who's to remember, not everyone gets discharged.